welcome to the March meeting of the Commission on Aging. Thanks to everybody for coming. First, I want to welcome Marie Allen from SWACA, who is going to do a presentation for us today. Really appreciate you coming. Marie came all the way from Orange, so for all of you people who out there are going, how much do we appreciate her willingness to battle I-95 and or the Merritt on the way down here. So thanks so much for being here, Marie. Appreciate it. Our first order of business is the discussion of the February minutes. Questions, changes? Peter?
Actually, I have very few this month. There's a really
Congrats to our secretary, raise the roof.
I'm just going to ask you to take a sentence out, which I don't think we really had in there, in talking about the snow situation,
Yeah.
snow removal. Chris Jones was attributed to say that he also noted there was not enough parking to start with. I don't think you said that, did you?
No.
Okay, so we'll strike that.
Just strike that.
Okay.
For the rest of it, I think is fine.
Great. Any other suggested modifications? None? Great. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as modified? Thank you. Second, back over there. Great. All in favor? Aye. Great. And oh my goodness, look at this. We got the first selectman, John Zagrodsky, joining us. How are you doing? Well, you can't beat that.
Incredibly handsome and entertaining.
Good to see you. That's right. Good to see you, brother. Great.
Not to interrupt your meeting, but
Go for
interrupt your meeting. So, I just wanted to come in and just maybe answer some questions or talk a little bit about Beth Paris, who's on leave. And I know you guys have had some questions about this. I had some remarks at the senior center yesterday, actually, to all the folks who were gathered there for lunch, and it just struck me that maybe coming in and talking to you guys briefly about that would help as well. So she's on leave. We expect that to be resolved pretty soon, certainly by the end of the month. But what you should take away from this is everything is fine. She's not sick. There's no serious problem like that. She's just had to be out for a bit to take care of a few things, and not to worry. So as soon as we know from her exactly what the next steps are and when all that will get resolved for her, we'll let you know. But I'm pretty confident it'll be before the end of the month.
Wow, that's such great news.
Yeah, so just not, any of you guys have come away really worried about her well-being or health or anything like that. There's none of that. It's just something that she's had to spend some time on, and I just wanted to make sure I conveyed all that to you personally. So if you have any questions about it, just give either Jen Charneski or Susan Barksdale or me a call. We're happy to talk about it further, but I just want to make sure you guys knew that, and so take away from this, not to worry. We will have news soon.
I'm going to piggyback on that Cynthia and I have been, Cynthia goes down, as you know, every Tuesday for Ask a Social Worker, and she's always busy. And then we're trying to support Liz however she can, because obviously she's got a lot on her plate right now. And then I'm going to be doing, well, until Beth returns, I'll be doing the caregiver support group starting tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, thanks for everybody tag teaming. This is the best news I've heard in a while, because I was very worried, especially as it seemed like everything was just closed down, and that just let everything go crazy. So I'm glad that it's coming to be resolved, and we'll see her hopefully in April.
Yeah, to build on Allie's point, if there's anything you guys can do to be supportive of Liz and the team down in Adler Center, please do that. They certainly could use the support, or frankly just a pat on the back. They're doing a great job to pick up the slack while Beth is away. So anyway, that's all I want to say.
John, you're the man. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate you.
Take care.
Thanks so much. You never know what's going to happen on a Commission on Aging meeting, am I right? Okay. Thanks for coming back.
That's the best thing that happens. You guys need to step.
No, that's the best thing this year, I promise you. Thank you. That's great. Thank you, John. Awesome. So that's why you should always tune in to TV 79. Who knows who'll show up here? Derek Jeter next? I don't know. So that's cool. Thanks for the approval of the minutes, and we just heard from John. It was great news about Beth. It relieves a lot of my concerns. I'm thrilled she's coming back. Once I saw that interim director title, I was even more freaked out. So I'm very glad that she's coming back. Thrilled to hear it. Great. Next topic is Human Services Report.
Okay, mine will be brief. We had quite a few, we had 4 protective services for the elderly referrals this past month. Thankfully, 3 of them, and most of them are referred by the Darien Police, and thankfully 3 of them have family involved and their needs were addressed, and they were able to close those cases, so phew. But we do have 1 that's ongoing. And as you guys know, I've said before, these are very time consuming. We work really closely with the social workers from protective services. We have a great relationship, and they of course like our help. So And then we had our first QPR, I think I already mentioned that, we had our first QPR training, which is question, persuade, refer. It's a 90-minute suicide prevention training to teach lay people how to deal with somebody who might be in a crisis, having suicidal thoughts or a mental health crisis. We had very good feedback from it, and Cynthia's being trained, so she'll be doing it with me in April, but we do have one more session next week, the 27th, from 10 to 11:30, here in room 206. And I think I might have mentioned this last time, but I do want to try to bring one down to the senior center and do it there. I think that would be great for the seniors, because this is across the age, across the lifespan. So there's still some spots left for that. Anyone can email me if they want to sign up for it. And then the usual, we're still plugging away with energy assistance. Most of the oil people have already, they're always done first because they get their deliveries, and now that's winding down. But electric and gas, they still go till May. And
There's still time.
Yep. And we usually send out a reminder to people who haven't applied, who've applied in the past. So we'll be doing that shortly. And that's pretty much it. The loan closet is hopping, and it's great service. I mean, people, I think I said this last month, every day. I feel like we lose people in there, sometimes multiple. We have a medical loan closet here. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And then, of course, our emergency call list. It's been a quiet winter, so we haven't had to call. So, actually, I think, did I mention this last month that one of the seniors actually called us asking why she hasn't been called? We're like, because there hasn't been a reason to call. We don't call when it's like 2 inches of snow,
Right.
there hasn't been anything, so knock on wood. We think we're okay with it. Anyway, that's all.
Great. Any questions for Ally?
Ally, have you thought about maybe doing that at the Darien Library? I don't think they've had any programs at the Darien Library on suicide prevention.
Yeah, well, we could do that. The thing is, it's really just for Darien residents or people who serve the Darien community, because it doesn't cost a lot, actually, this program, compared to mental health first aid. But yeah, actually, the YMCA wants us to come and do it, because they had quite a few people sign up for it, and so we said, why don't we just come to you? Because, so we're open to doing that.
So I could pass that on to Elizabeth Maricola and let her know?
Yeah, absolutely. Or what they also have done, even with our mental health first aid trainings, and they'll send a lot of their staff to our training.
Good,
So a lot of
good.
the actually, Amanda, I think, is coming to this training.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, she's the right person.
Yeah,
Yep.
so.
What day in April?
We didn't pick a date in April yet, but the March 27th, but we will, and it'll be in the town newsletter, and then spread on social media and all of that. So if you don't get the town newsletter, you should sign up, hopefully. Does everyone know about the town newsletter? Yeah, okay.
But how about for our TV 79 people? How would they sign up for the town newsletter? Do we know? Go to the
It's
internet.
Marley Hayes.
It's on the internet.
Yeah, I'm sure it says it on the town website, which is darionct.gov.
Right.
And there's a little bar up there saying, how do I bet if you type it in there.
Yeah.
But Marley Hayes is the communications manager for the town, and
Okay.
she's the one who runs it, so you'd have to reach out tomorrow.
Okay.
So I can tell you her email.
Go for
Which
it.
would be mhayes, Hayes, @darionct.gov.
Brilliant.
Now
Yeah.
Marley is gonna get a ton of.
I threw that one out there, and I said, Ally will answer this, and I was right. Well done,
But it's
thank you.
it's booming. I forget, she said, I can't quote, but I feel like she said maybe like 5,000 people are getting, I think it
Wow.
was close to 5. So it's a great, source of information about all different things going on in the town.
Very cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
And that's all I have.
Any other questions for Ally? Hearing none, thanks again to Ally and Cynthia for picking up some slack for Beth and the Mather Center. Appreciate that. Great. Without further ado, we have Marie Allen here, who is President and CEO of the Southwest Connecticut Agency on Aging, otherwise known as SWACA. And she's here to discuss current issues faced by our seniors and those who serve them. The floor is yours, Marie.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone this morning. As you said, Joe, I represent the Southwestern Connecticut Agency on Aging. We are a nonprofit 501c3 organization, but we are mandated by the federal government to be an area agency on aging. So there are 670 of us throughout the United States. Every city and town is covered by an area agency on aging. Ours in Southwest serves Greenwich all the way through to Stratford and out to Monroe. So we have 14 cities and towns. I have 4 other area agencies on aging throughout Connecticut that support the other regions. We have only 14 cities and towns. When you look out in the east, They have 56, the senior resources, but they have more cows than people. So we actually have more people that we serve in our small geographic area of southwestern Connecticut. And the purpose of our organization, or the federal purpose, is to take funds that are allocated through the Older Americans Act, which funds all of the home-delivered meals, congregate meal sites, community-based meal sites, and some very specific programs for older adults. We take that money in from the federal government and we allocate it through a grants process out to the community. We are charged with making sure that we target low-income, underserved individuals. So as you can guess, within our region, the majority of our funds go to Bridgeport, Norwalk, and Stanford. That's where you will find the greatest concentrations. That does not mean that folks in Darien are not served. We do support through Medicare education, through, Ally, I'm going to point to you with the Medicare Savings Program a couple of years ago. We fought together to save the Medicare Savings Program, which saves our older adults countless thousands of dollars in prescription drug costs and Medicare co-payments. So we do work very closely with everyone. We're a very good friend of Beth's as she runs the Mather Center. We do group education for all the senior centers, and we support through something called the Choices Program, individual counseling so that individuals make the best decision related to their Medicare programs.
And Marie, Cynthia and I are both Choices counselors.
Yay, and we love you for that because we use kind of an extrapolation model with Choices. Our staff, there are 6 individuals who are trainers for Medicare, and they go out and train the community so that people like Ally and Cynthia can provide support directly to Darien, because if it was only the 6 staff people, we would never be able to make the impact that we do by having highly informed and well-trained volunteers. Although I know that's just one more thing to add to your day, but volunteers out in the community in every city and town. In addition to our federal charge, we are also the Medicaid agency for Southwestern Connecticut. We are the contractor that provides Medicaid support to older adults, giving them an alternative to nursing home placement. And I love those words because it really does explain what the Connecticut Home Care Program does. It offers older adults an alternative to nursing home placement. If you think of someone who has no assets or very limited assets, and they get to a point where they're having trouble bathing, dressing, getting their medications, eating and preparing their food, they would have no choice, unless family could support them, they would have no choice but to go to a nursing home. The Connecticut Home Care Program comes in and says, if you meet this financial eligibility criteria, which it is Medicaid, it is very low, but we have 9 individuals in Darien who are on the Connecticut Home Care Program,
Nice.
being supported by this program. These could be individuals who just outlived their resources. When you look at, and we'll talk a little bit about longevity, these individuals would have had no choice but to go into nursing home placement. I have been working with seniors for the last 30 years. And I have never had a senior say, help me get into a nursing home. I have had many, many seniors ask me to help them stay out of a nursing home. And so with a great deal of pride, we coordinate the services, the care management for over 3,400 seniors in southwestern Connecticut and give them an alternative to nursing home placement. They're allowed to stay in their home. We'll bring in the visiting nurse, homemakers, companions. Sometimes they'll go to adult day centers, or they may need home-delivered meals. All of those things are paid for with the Medicaid insurance that these people have. So that's our role in the community. I wanted to talk just a minute about aging in America and how wonderful it is. It should be seen as one of the greatest cultural and scientific events in the world, that we are living so much longer. When you think about 1950s, in 1950s, the average longevity was 68 years of age. Today, it's 84 for women and 80 for men. average, but still, when you think about the programs that were developed to support older adults, like Social Security, when it was developed, we were thinking it would have to financially support the individual for another 3 to 5 years. The program hasn't changed much, yet our older adults are living so much longer. So a program designed to financially support 3 to 5 years is now being asked to support 20 to 25 years. So you can see the push and pull and the conflict that happens when policies do not keep up with the actual experience of humans. As humans, we're living so much longer, but the policy hasn't changed to figure out how we're going to continue to pay for it. The achievement is incredible when you think about what older adults can do for a community, to give back to a community, having all those additional years post-retirement. I heard Peter on Bob Duff's and AARP's broadcast the other day talk about, well, when he retired, Kathy asked him what he would do with his spare time, and his response was, I'm going to give back. That's a perfect example. We get so much from older adults, and the fact that they have so many additional years to give back to their communities. We just have to now take some of our policies and our programs and help catch up so that older adults can live with dignity and independence for as long as they'd like to. There's definitely an intergenerational equity discussion going on, and it's related to the balanced budget. I'm going to stay as nonpartisan as possible throughout this discussion, but there have been some changes and some things that we have to look to and make sure that as a community we're prepared to do. There's a perception in some communities that we're all competing for the same limited resources. That idea that there's a zero-sum game. If one group gets money, then the other group has to lose money. And that's not necessarily true. Communities like Darien are really leading the way in taking away that mindset, that perception. When I look at what you've done, Chris, with At Home and bringing in school and high school students to come and support older adults, the intergenerational program you've done, it's amazing. And it is showing a community that there is a way that everyone thrives, and it's not one group against the other. But in other communities, baby boomers are often looked at as a draw on federal resources, especially when you look at the line items of Medicare and Social Security. There's an ongoing argument as to whether Social Security and Medicare, are they an entitlement or is it an insurance? We've paid into it. So if you've paid into your Social Security, if you've paid into Medicare, it is yours. It is not something that someone's giving you. It's something that you've saved for all your lives, and you should be able to count on it as you reach an age that you need it. You see arguments even at the local level. Trumbull is going through a big fight for a new senior center. Their senior center is very old and not very accessible for older adults. And you can see the groups coming out, well, you know, we could use a new school or a new park, fighting with the idea that a senior center will be developed.
We live that here.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
But in any event, Hollow Tree Ridge Elementary School with child-sized toilets was our senior center for decades.
Yes.
And leaking roofs.
And leaking roof and et cetera. And so this commission was huge in getting the Mather Center done along with the selectmen and everybody else. So, but it was a fight, and we went all the way to a referendum.
Did you? Okay.
And we won the referendum. But that's, you know, that was over a $7.5 million project. So, I mean, we lived it. So we know what Trumbull's going through. It was rough. It's rough.
Absolutely.
It took more than 10 years for us, really.
Oh yeah, we had a wonderful woman named May who said to me once in the 1990s, Joe, I'm gonna die before they build a new senior center. Sadly, she did.
Oh.
Okay, so at the end of the day, these kind of fights are generational, and we had that fight. So prayers up for Trumbull and those folks fighting for their senior center.
Absolutely. But it is a testament to what a small group of citizens, I forget how it goes, but never underestimate what a small group of committed citizens can do to make change. And you folks did it, and I'm hopeful that Trumbull will do it. And I know Monroe went through the same fight about a decade ago. So it's not uncommon, and it shouldn't be. We should look at how everyone in a community thrives, not just one group versus the other. But you can hear some of these arguments going on right now when we talk about, when the administration talks about protecting Medicare and Social Security, and sometimes Medicaid and sometimes not Medicaid. So I'm not quite sure where we'll fall on Medicaid. I am personally very concerned about what will happen with things like our Medicare Savings Program, which, again, I cannot tell you how important it is to so many older adults. The copays on their medications could in some ways either limit the amount of medication they take or limit their availability of funds for things like food, rent, other items. So we will be keeping a very close eye on that, because that program in Connecticut is much more generous than it is in other states. And so I fear that could be one of the things that will be retracted. Yeah, wouldn't it? Not to mention even the home care program, where you see, you know. The way I look at it, though, it's truly an alternative to nursing home placement. We don't have enough nursing home beds to put people back, so we will have to do something. But as you've just stated, it never happens quickly, and never quickly enough to, protect everyone who needs to be protected. I just wanted to talk for a second about long-term care. This is something that came up at the meeting with our legislators, our legislative breakfast. When you think about long-term care, we know that 7 out of 10 women and 6 out of 10 men, if they make it to 65, will need some amount of long-term care. And long-term care is different than health care. Health care treats your acute illness, but long-term care is when you're having trouble with those activities of daily living, things like dressing, transferring from a toilet or a chair, ambulating, medication management, and procuring food and being able to eat. So when you think in terms of 7 out of 10 will have it, it's something that nobody really talks about, and we spend a lot more time preparing for our vacations than we do preparing for the inevitability that if we live long enough, we may need some support in the home. We know that the preference is definitely to stay at home, but there are a lot of conflicting influences, things like the workforce. We do not have a strong workforce for in-home care. That's something that, unfortunately, it's a very low-paid job. It often falls to companies that think it's easy to make money on the backs of seniors. We have some excellent home care agencies. We have some people that said, oh, I once had a grandma, so I think I should be a home care agency. And that shouldn't be the way. There should be some certification, some skills assessment of people going out into the home. And that has not happened as a standard. I think it should be a national standard, and it's something that older adults deserve that protection. Ally talked about 4 cases in protective services. Last month at SWACA, we had 47 cases with protective services. So when you look across at what's happening, there's just always the possibility for neglect, for exploitation, or for abuse. And also what we're seeing a lot of, and I don't know if you're seeing this as well, Ally, is a lot of mental health issues that self-neglect is happening as a result of the mental health issues that individuals have, and a lot of substance abuse and alcohol abuse that is contributing to poor health outcomes and inability to take care of people. So having a strong workforce that knows how to handle these things, that is familiar with Alzheimer's and dementia, understands the dignity of the person and supports the dignity of the person is absolutely essential. And I do think that's something that we'll be doing a lot more work with. At the legislature, they are hesitant to put more unfunded mandates on home care agencies. I disagree with that. I think if you're getting paid to do a job, you should be held accountable, and if we need to put those standards in, then we should. Especially in the Medicaid program, where anyone who has a business in home care and goes through the application process, which is a little onerous, but people get through it, is allowed to serve older adults in the Medicaid population, and that's unfortunate. Another thing that people don't think about, if you are fortunate enough to have resources, to have assets, we run into a lot of people who don't want to use them, to take care of themselves. And that's where we run into self-neglect, which unfortunately Protective Services for the Elderly is really not able to help the person if they're alert and oriented and making the decision not to support themselves in their home. And one of the things, it's interesting, even in my own family, we had to have a conversation about a grandfather who had plenty of money to take care of himself, but would tell me every weekend while I drove to Ridgewood, New Jersey to take care of him, that he's all set. He's saving his money for a rainy day. And finally, one day I had to tell him, Pop, it's pouring outside. I can't keep coming back here every weekend to help with your care. And we had to have that conversation. If you stay in your home and you fall, and you end up in a nursing home, I gave you a little chart on the long-term care page, which says, imagine if you had $200,000 in assets, and you went into a nursing home. Based on today's cost of nursing home, you would be out of money in 18 months.
That's a great chart.
And in 24 months, you'd be negative $196,000. But if you use your money to fund a 12-hour a day, like what I did with my grandfather, I have to work, we're gonna move you here to Connecticut, we're gonna set someone up to help take care of you for 10 hours a day, and when I get home from work, you and I can enjoy each other and spend the evening together. His money would last much, much, much longer. He doesn't run out of money until 24 months. So it's helping people understand that investing in your own care really makes a difference, because the alternative without care is a probable fall or a health emergency that will leave you with no other choice but nursing home placement. So that's a chart that I used something very similar with my family, and I show it to all of our new care managers who have to go out and talk to individuals. Everyone's afraid that Medicaid's going to take all their money in recoupment and recovery. Untrue. Medicaid is going to take back, in some cases, the money they spent on the person. But if you have a home that's valued at $500,000 and you are on Medicaid for a year with home care services, you probably owe the state about $70,000. So $430,000 of that home's value is still going to go to your heirs, or as you would like it. The state cannot take 1 penny more from you than what they have put out for your care. And people say, well, why does the state take the money? You do have to look at it from both sides. We are all taxpayers, and Medicaid is paid for with taxpayers' dollars. And if we never recouped any money, or we didn't have strict eligibility and everybody was on it, our taxes would have to increase to meet the demand. So, I've counseled many families where they come in and say, that mean state, how could they do that? And again, not to be political, you do have to look at all sides of the coin. Could we all have a 48% tax assessment to keep pace with Medicaid? Probably not. That's not what we want to do. And especially not to allow people just to fund their heirs. We want to make sure people get the care that they need in their home, and that they're not paying the state for more than what they've used. But we have to look at this fairly. The cost of living in Connecticut is a real challenge for many older adults on a fixed income. We're about 13% higher than the national average, and I don't need to tell any of you about your utilities bills. I'm sure you've seen that. home care costs are rising more quickly than the national average, but also across the US, home care costs are rising more quickly. So are health care costs. The problem that we're seeing is that there's no quality improvement. The quality remains flat, but the costs keep increasing. At SWACO, we have 115 employees, and this year when we renewed our insurance policy, it was up 12%. 12%. I mean, how do you even budget for a 12% increase? And I was told that that's not a bad increase, that other nonprofits were closer to 18 to 20%. So when you look at that from an organizational point of view, and then you look at the cost that older adults are paying, even with Medicare insurance, most older adults are paying about $7,000 a year in additional healthcare costs. So those could be co-pays, it could be over-the-counter medications, it could be other types of co-payments for medical or physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, any of those things. That's a lot of out-of-pocket for someone on a fixed income, especially when they're paying, what is it, $9 for a dozen eggs. So it really does add up for our older adults. And that's why, again, it's really important to take that community perspective and see what we can do internally to support the older adult with outstanding programs like at the Mather Center that are, for the most part, free, by looking at home in Darien and the incredible job you do getting people to medical appointments and things that would not be possible without it. We talked a lot about housing. I think Peter presented on housing at our legislative breakfast. And none of this will be surprising to you, but housing in Connecticut is about 23% higher than the national average. And there's a real scarcity of someone who had, who's living in the home that they brought up their 3 children in, probably does not need the 3,000, 4,000 square feet that they have, but there's few alternatives in the neighborhoods that they want to be in. They want to stay in their community, and there's few alternatives to downsize and find something that's appropriate. Connecticut didn't do a great job of transportation-focused housing, so for many of our communities, housing is not coordinated with transportation hubs, so that if the older adult does have to give up driving, it makes it super difficult for them to get anywhere. At Home in Darien is certainly a model. I don't know, Chris, do you share information with other at-home programs throughout the region, throughout the state?
We do, and probably not enough, but some of the local aging in place organizations, Staying Put and At Home in Greenwich, and I've got a meeting with Kathleen Bordelon tomorrow at Silver
Yes.
Source. So we try to, nothing real official, but try to, connect when we can.
Right, because you're certainly a best practice, and it would be wonderful for others to learn from you, so. Finally, we'll talk just for a second about transportation. We have mostly rural and suburban communities, but even in our cities, in a city like Bridgeport or in Norwalk, where they have a fairly sophisticated public transportation system, for older adults, it's really about that last mile. So you can get them to the bus stop, that's great, but now they have 2 15-pound bags of groceries and they have to walk a half a mile to wherever they live. That's just not possible. So some communities, Oregon, the state of Oregon has done a great job of, okay, we're going to have these programs called the last mile, where for older adults, instead of saying, okay, you have to wait for a handicap accessible bus or a van, which usually is about an hour late to get you to the doctors or bring you back from the doctors. We'll use public transportation, but then we'll set up something that will pick you up at the hub and get you to that last mile, to your home. And that's something that we have asked the legislators to have a task force in this upcoming legislative session, so that we can talk a little bit more about last mile programs for older adults and help them get to the appointments they need without the embarrassment of being left at a doctor's office for an hour after your appointment's done. The volunteer programs are wonderful. Again, Chris, I can't say enough about what you've done. And ride-sharing programs, I mean, they are effective in some cases, but you're making the assumption that the older adult has a smartphone, knows how to use it, is able to see clearly enough to order that ride, is comfortable getting into a vehicle with someone who they've never met before, and is confident that there will be an Uber or a Lyft to get them back home. I mean, here in Connecticut, we have a sophisticated system for Uber and Lyft, but my mom lives in the villages down in Florida, and last year we made the decision that there'd be no more driving. They do not have a very good network of drivers down in Florida, and I thought that would be the answer, and it's not, because they don't show up. They're not, they make you wait for a very long time, which makes her very anxious and nervous, as it would, and it's just, we're not quite there yet. You know, we have many hopes for a driverless car, but I think that's well into the future too. So I think Chris has job security for a long time. There's no doubt about that. So right now, we're in a legislative session that will conclude in June. And the budget period will start July 1. It's a biennium budget, a two-year budget. I think there is paralysis at the state level because they're waiting to see what's going to happen with the federal budget. We learned on Friday with the passing of the continuing resolution that funding for important programs like Medicare and Medicaid will stay. Our grant-funded programs will stay in place through September 30th. Everyone's looking with eyes wide open for October 1, but you know, we can sit and worry, or we can continue to work and get the job done and make those contingency plans, but be ready for what happens on October 1. And in my opinion, that's about all that we can do. Worrying does not get you a whole lot of anything. So, Joe, that's what I have for you.
Awesome. Questions for Marie?
So it was 100% of your funding through either the federal or state government, or are there other sources?
Thank you, great question. 95% of our funding is through federal and state resources. 5% comes from some grants that I write, some fundraising, our board of directors fundraising as well. We have a strong grant with the Fairfield County Community Foundation for something called the Senior Housing Assistance Fund, so that if an individual needs a security deposit or moving expenses, we can grant that individual up to $1,500 to help with the moving expenses. It's outstanding. It started in Norwalk. Some of you may remember Susan Ross from the Fairfield County Community Foundation. She was a mentor of mine and one of my favorite people. And she and I built that program in Norwalk, and then we were able to expand it when the Bridgeport Foundation shut down. So.
Peter?
And I can attest to SWACA's continuing presence in our community. Last week, for example, at the senior center, there was a Medicare fraud scam protection that Jen Tully did from SWACA. And it was a room full of, again, of our seniors. So again, it's not just big programs like Choices, it's their availability to interact and provide support. We appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you.
Other questions, Ray? Jim?
Yeah, well, first, thank you for your support of At Home in Darien and other aging in place organizations. Each year we have an annual meeting and we get a guest speaker. And before I took the role, we had Marie, and I keep hearing, oh, we need to get somebody like Marie. She did such an amazing job. So you made a mark on the board and our organization. We are going to start probably looking a little closer at nutrition. So I don't really have a specific question other than we've looked at some of the solutions that are out there today. So maybe as follow-up, maybe not in the meeting here, but maybe as follow-up, I'd love to talk to you and, what are some of the best practices? What are some things that are being done by some other organizations that might be a little bit different that we might be able to learn from? Something that transportation has been so dominant and will continue to be dominant, but we're really looking to to attack some other things that we know are challenging for the senior population in Darien, and that includes nutrition. So again, if you can give that some thought, I'll reach out to you, and I'd love to get your thoughts.
I definitely will, and I'll tell you, the State Unit on Aging, who is the go-between between the federal government and the area agencies on aging, is applying for something called grab-and-go meals. During COVID, obviously, the senior center is shut down, the community center is shut down, and so we flipped the script. Instead of having those meals at senior centers, we did drive-throughs, and we did one in Westport that was very successful. 2 or 3 times a week, the seniors would drive up, roll down their window, and someone in a mask would hand them a grab-and-go meal so that they had food at home. They didn't have to grocery shop as much, and the food was all prepared if they were perhaps a widow or a widower and did not want to spend the time preparing a meal. So we've asked if we could continue that, because we definitely see a benefit to that. There are some people that for whatever reason can't get out. So that might be something to think about in terms of at home in Darien, how we could get meals, especially if someone perhaps is not feeling well or under the weather and needs it.
Yeah, we get people here for meals, and that's great. We don't want to detract from the
No.
senior center, but you're right, there are other people, and we have drivers out on the road, and so.
Sounds
could be
like a
good fit.
win-win, yeah.
And we did that in Darien. I remember Kathy and I sitting in the car and picking up our lunches on occasion.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's a wonderful program, and again, we have to hope that the Older Americans Act dollars are there so that we can continue it, but as long as they are there, Chris, I think it's worth a conversation.
Good.
Awesome. Other questions for Marie?
I just have a comment about the home care program and how amazing it is. And, you know, many of those, I know you said with 9, I don't think we work with all 9 of them, but we work with many of them. And one example, and it's a client that at home provides for multiple times a week, but it's life-changing for her. I mean, she's been a client of ours for a very long time, lovely woman, has a son who's disabled, no other supportive family, getting around the program. While it was tedious for me doing all the Medicaid stuff, but we did it, and but it's been life-changing for her and for me, because now she has an aide who is amazing. They lucked out, they had to go through a couple,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he's like a part of their family and takes her on all her appointments, so I don't have to take her, and because she needs someone to go in with her. So you guys drive, but you know, so it really is an amazing program, and she's so
Thank you.
happy to be on it. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's wonderful.
Again, that's back to that alternative to nursing home place, and think about that, like if you had no choice, this gives you the alternative, and that's wonderful. And as you said with the aides, it does take a couple, I always say to our families, you're gonna have to kiss a few frogs before you get your prince, but you will
Oh,
get there.
she
You
has
just
a
have to-
prince.
She definitely does.
That's
Oh my God,
wonderful.
we're like, you can never leave, please. He's like part of their family.
That's
He's
wonderful.
there
Great
6 days a
questions.
week.
He's on it.
He's
That's
like an
wonderful.
advocate for her.
Definitely.
He's taking her to a different level, so.
We need that guy cloned.
Exactly. Oh, no, I tell him all the time, I'm like, please never leave, but he loves working with them too, because they're
Sure.
lovely people to work with, but anyway.
Good.
Others for Marie? Hearing none, Marie, thank you so much.
you.
Tremendous presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yes, please call, and Chris, we'll get together.
Yeah, that's
Okay?
awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Awesome.
For the invite. Everyone, have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Thanks so
Marie.
much for coming.
Travel safe.
Thank you.
Great. So after 2 pleasant events between our first selectman and Marie, we have an unpleasant event, okay, which is the letter from the Royal, okay? All right. So we, as many of you who watch us on TV 79 know, last month we had folks from the Royal come to us and basically say that they have a huge problem with snow removal. Thankfully, this winter has been mellow, and so it's not been as huge a deal, but now the concern is next winter. So we have a letter from March 12th, 2025. I'm just going to read the relevant portion of this letter, and this will be in the minutes, so anybody who wants to read the whole thing can see it, okay? I am writing a response to your letter. The Royal is a 55 and older, active, independent living community that provides quality, affordable housing to its residents. We do realize that as seniors age, some may require additional assistance to live independently. However, the Royal is an apartment building, not an assisted living facility. An independent rental housing community, we provide all the services and amenities required and found in comparable communities. We sympathize with the elderly residents that have expressed a need for additional supportive services with snow removal, and we are seeking options for them. Key question. This has been brought to the attention of the members of the Darien Housing Authority Board, and they have volunteered to identify a company that would be willing to provide services to the residents who need them, but these services would be at the residents' cost. Any assistance your organization can provide identifying vendors or individuals who provide this type of service would be appreciated. Okay, so that's the relevant portion of the letter. So, the question for the commission is, it sounds very clear that they're not going to offer for free, okay, this. So, the big question is, how far do you want to fight that portion of it, or are we better off using our ammunition to push the housing authority and potentially the Royal to find these other resources, which if we can get them, okay, let's assume it's $25 a snowfall, $50 a snowfall. Are we comfortable with the idea that these folks in this 55 plus community would in fact be willing to pay for the service?
Well, some might not be able to, because it's different tiers of income.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. So I mean, so I'm opening it up for thoughts. Sue?
It just feels like such nickel and diming to me. It just is unconscionable, really. The idea that they can't hire, they had always provided this in the past, so they've suddenly just cut their budget at the expense of the seniors who can't handle the snow, because they did do this up until like 3 years ago.
Okay,
I
so
don't think that they never cleaned the cars up.
They did. They
They
did clean the cars
unofficially-
off.
Really?
My
I
friend
thought
Ann, who
liability, yeah.
came to the
Right.
meeting, will attest.
Oh, but didn't they pay them extra or no? I
Not,
thought that's what she
not the past people who removed the snow
Mm.
did all of that.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood that.
So Sue is very passionate about this. So what I would love to do is to have a motion from this commission to say, Sue, have at it. See, so seriously, so that we can be in a position where you can figure out, is there a path forward where, whether it's the housing authority or whatever, to push this issue, okay? And at a bare minimum, we can always argue in the alternative, get us that person, because what's very clear, and whether they can afford it or not, I get that question. It's very clear right now, we have seniors in the Royal who are not in a position to clean off their cars, okay? And they may have the resources to pay for it or not, but we at least have to get something like that, otherwise they're locked in. I mean, the way they're doing the plowing, they are literally locked in, okay, behind the thing. So is everybody cool with that?
And it goes beyond that. They're asking them to move their cars.
And there is a shortage of parking there, because even when
And-
you go visit, right, when you've
There's
gone
no
and like,
Where are they
there's no
supposed to
visitor
move
parking.
their cars, and how are they supposed to make it available to be cleared?
Chris?
You know, as I guess the official representative for At Home in Darien, we support a lot of people there. We've got 2 board members here also. Whatever is decided about pursuing with the other sources, I really would like to commit, you know, our organization to looking at a solution, whether
Okay.
that's pursuing a grant specifically for that. You know, hopefully that would be something that we could potentially provide some help with.
Okay.
So we'll start looking into that and talk to our team, my team, and see if there are any solutions. We have people who do shovel, I think we talked about that. That's really, right after the snow, they do public sidewalks. But with some planning in 10 months maybe, you know, maybe there's something that we can offer also.
So I got 2 tracks here. I got the Chris, wonderful At Home in Darien track, and I've got the Sue, I'm gonna rattle your freaking cage, okay, track. Are we both cool with exposing those 2 tracks? You
Well,
good?
one thing I think we've got to establish, because there's a lot in that letter that I wasn't aware of. They are clearly saying, we're not here for the elderly. That's not our purpose. We're
Correct.
apartments, we're commercial apartments.
Yeah,
And from a legal perspective, my guess is we have no standing and nobody else does, that that's the case. They are in fact
Well, the standing is to rattle their cages and annoy them sufficiently where they do something.
Yeah, exactly. But how do you do that if their attitude is going to be fine, it'll cost, and now we can do all the analysis we want, but we know we're gonna find people that just absolutely can't afford it.
Right.
And that's gonna be a solution, whether it's, or issue, whether or not there is grant money somewhere that does it, or any of those. So I think it has to be specific about the consequences of what that letter says. They can, based on that letter, in my view, they can just come back to us and say, go pound salt, we're an apartment.
I would, you raise a really good point. I wouldn't take them at their word I would go back to the original documents when they were selected as the developer for that property and find out what they were required to do. I don't trust them to tell me in their letter that they have no responsibility. It's very possible that when the building was constructed, there was I know that it was done through the housing authority that selected this company to build those apartments.
But
And you have to go
they're
back.
two different, the company that built them, but Imagineers is the management.
Right. I know, but what I'm saying is that when the contract for having, I'm blanking on the guy's name who was the builder for that.
McClatchy.
McClatchy.
Yeah, McClatchy. There has to have been a contract at the time that may or may not have required a certain amount of service beyond just an apartment building.
Mhm.
We know that it's
It's town
age
housing,
restricted,
right.
we know it's town housing, so I wouldn't take them at their word, and I don't know where to look, who has those documents, but at some point, probably the Darien Housing Authority should know.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
and I think that's why going the two-path way, I think the Darien Housing Authority has got to be involved. They own the land.
This is exactly the
they are
point
the
I wanted to
commercial
make.
agreement.
It seems to me that we should be putting pressure on the housing authority to step up and make, the management company, which they hired, is the one claiming they have no responsibility. I think the housing authority needs to say, well, yes, indeed, you do.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. The point is, we need to understand, is that letter factually correct about what their obligations are?
So can I have a
Thank you,
motion?
that was much more succinct as what I was
Yeah,
trying to
I
say.
think we're all on the same page, so can I get a motion to have a two-track process, okay, whereby Sue and potentially Susan, please tell me you guys would be a nice tag team on this, potentially, okay, would in fact pursue the Darien Housing Authority on this issue, okay? As I think we just need to leave these people alone for a second and go for the Darien Housing Authority. Whereas Chris, on behalf of At Home in Darien, has 10 months to see if he can find a solution for whoever these people are who actually need it, okay, right? I mean, because it may be there are people in there who are willing to let the snow melt, okay? Like I do with some of my situations. Sometimes I go, that car could sit there forever. But is that cool? Is everybody good with that? Okay, so can I get a motion to that effect? Thank you, second. All in favor? Aye, okay, two-track, let's rock and roll. I'd love to get a report back. Let's put it to September. Okay, let's put it on our calendar for September. What is going on now? We're now 2 months away from, this is in September, from snow again in November. Where are we on this? Because I don't want to have a meeting on this every month, but I do think if we can get a report in September as to where. But if you have some success, love to hear that too, anytime. All right, cool, awesome. Moving on, old business. You got something for us, Peter?
I do. Checking with AARP in Hartford, a couple things going forward. This getting a family caregiver financial support is moving ahead. I took a look yesterday. There are 7 states that have programs where you can get tax relief on caregiving. Oklahoma, for example, $2,000 for veterans, $2,000 for seniors, $3,000 for veterans of dementia care. Again, realizing that people providing support for family members. And It's interesting, 'cause it's all over the country. Georgia, Missouri, Montana, New Jersey, North Dakota, South Carolina, all have programs in place where we can get some tax relief if you're a caregiver, and so that's progressing. Prescription drugs bill is progressing. It's out of committee. Tracy Mara of our town has been doing some work in that area. And again, looking again to reduce prescription care. The electricity rates, again, very contentious. That bill did not leave committee yesterday, but that was one of the aspects of that bill is where the town could buy the electricity for everybody in the town, and then control what electricity you would have in your town. And you would have to opt out of it, which is really risky, and it's not very good. But anyway, I think we saw enough opposition to that, so that's up in the air. So, but again, the bigger question again is electricity rates. More to come. As Marie said, it's busy. Tax aid, I think it's really interesting. Tax aid at the Darien Library, they've had 22 sessions. They've prepared more than 1,100 returns. Last year they prepared 1,050, more than 11, and we have 12 sessions left.
Wow.
And every slot is full. It's amazing. I do the Reed branch of the Stanford Library on Saturday, and that is completely walk-in. And I have to tell you, the library opens the door at 10 o'clock. We can handle about 22 people. Last Saturday, on the porch at 9 o'clock were 17 people.
Wow.
And these are people, I mean, number 17 was dealt with probably around 12 o'clock. So an hour in the cold, and then it's a real need. And again, volunteers, I mean, if we had more tax preparers, we could handle more taxes. But it's a real, and it's interesting because people will say, well, who did you do it last year? I did TurboTax last year, but I can't do TurboTax anymore. Again, prices are changing, it's becoming more complex, and again, they want the confidence. We talked about the Commission on Aging survey of commissions on aging around the state. That's progressing slowly, and again, I will keep you up to date on that. The good news is I have my beach pass on my car window. You can get your beach pass in Darien. If you're a senior, it's free. And if you don't have a car window, you can also get a piece of paper that identifies you. And it's still, I want to get to the point where we can hang it on our windshield like a handicap parking.
Yeah.
And we're one step away from that. But again, if you like the beach and you're a senior,
65 and older? Do you know?
I don't know, it's 60 or 65.
Man, I sure hope it's 60.
Yeah.
I think no, I'm trying to remember.
No, I think it is
Okay.
65.
Okay, I
just did it.
got four more
You
years.
can also get a dump sticker.
Right.
When you're 65.
That's the issue, right? I got another 4 years to
Yeah.
get a dumpster.
We'll take up a collection.
Listen, I'll take all my freebies. I'm still mad at Dunkin' Donuts for their AARP elimination of the get a donut when you get a coffee. That made me so mad.
There is one other thing that came up in the SWACA meeting, which is interesting, which is this medical order for life-sustaining program, the MOATS
Yeah.
program, which is what we heard from Post 53.
Right.
And we had a discussion about that, and Marie Allen said that SWACA is going to try and put together some town halls
Good.
for, even electronic town halls for towns, so they can do it, because this form is starting to become in use now, and people don't know about it, so something that's
Cool.
important.
Good.
That'll be it.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions for Peter? Hearing none. Old business. Chris, what's happening at
Well, I handed out the out and about. It's going to be delivered in the community. I'm going to give you a copy, Joe. Probably Friday of this week. The front cover, we've got that van, which I've spoken about. We're in the process of pulling together a survey. Our van committee, led by Sue Oki, among the many things she does, is looking at destinations, potential destinations, and we're talking about organizations that we can work with and support. So we want to get some feedback. There are a lot of different events that are possible, so we want to get feedback. We've got about 1,200 people on our email list, so we're really looking forward to getting that out. We should be getting it out in the next couple of days and get that feedback. We are also looking at more events, as I mentioned, I think, in the past, and almost finalizing a big fall event, a pickleball event. Other organizations have done that. We've been planning that for a while. Probably in October, November, we're going to hopefully have the actual date within the next week or so. And that's really not geared necessarily for our senior members, although we know that there will be members who participate, but for other members of the community who want to support our organization. And so we're working on the details, and any thoughts or recommendations, that we would love to hear them, okay? So, those are the highlights.
Awesome, appreciate it, Chris. Other old business? Any new business? Peter?
I have new business. I heard this week from Laurel House. Laurel House was established in 1984. It deals with mental health support. I looked at their annual report. They have more than 900 individuals who served this past year. They have an event coming up on Saturday evening, April 26th, and I call your attention to it because they honor town champions. And this year, Darien's town champion is our own chairman, Joe Pankowski. The website is laurelhouse.net. I believe it's in Greenwich,
No, it's in Stamford.
or it's in Stamford.
Cynthia and I actually finally went, we work with them.
Oh, right.
We finally went to visit them 2 weeks
Well, then
ago.
you talk about it.
I think we all got invitations, by
That
the
will be
way.
a
At least I know I did.
Thank you, Peter. Very nice, appreciate that. Very kind.
Well, we appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Other new business? Hearing none, thank you all for coming. Can I have a motion to conclude the, thanks, all in favor? Aye, good work. Thanks, everybody.